Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. This is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I am your host, Joshua Washington, the Executive Director, and I will be joined by my lovely co-host and our Speakers Bureau Chief, Olga Mishway Washington, in just a few moments. We have been, if you didn't know, um, we have been we haven't been in the forum for the past couple of weeks. We've been in South Africa, and initially I was going to join you from there, but there are a couple of complications on our end, and we weren't able to do that. Mainly, the whole family got kind of under the weather and all that stuff. So our CEO hosted the past couple of weeks now, I think 2 or 3 weeks, but we're back, and we're happy to be joining you. There's a lot to talk about today, and our CEO has been touching on some of those things. We're going to kind of circle back to some of those things and continue to push the conversation forward. And as you all have known or noticed, there's been a lot of activity when it comes to Jew hatred. We've been seeing it primarily. We've been seeing all over the place, but it seems like there is this rising tide of anti-Jewish sentiment, anti-Israel sentiment that's coming now, even more so from the right side of the aisle. And so IBSI has been calling that out as well. And like we've said before, many, many times, we don't care where it's coming from. We will call it out when we see it. Those who see us calling it out on the left side of the aisle will, sometimes people have an issue with that. And now other people have an issue with us calling it out on the right side. We call it out where we see it. So we're going to get into that. But the first thing I want to talk about here is just being in South Africa. We were there for the past couple of weeks, and we had a great time. It was amazing. Spent some time with family. My father-in-law, our Speakers Bureau Chief's father, Dr. Rev Kenneth Mway, got remarried this past trip that we had just now, a little over a week ago now. As those of you who know and who are aware of the Mway family in South Africa, Mama Lydia Mway passed away now over a year ago, and it has been a very, very tough time for the family. And but this was a time of celebration, which was amazing. And so we were there for that. We had a great time. And there were things that I always notice, and things that, little things sometimes that Olga will share with me while we're in South Africa, that I just, you can hear about these things, you can write them down, you can learn about them, you can watch a YouTube video or even read a book, but it's different actually experiencing it every day. There's something that kind of, I think, changes in you as you're going through those things. One of those things is apartheid South Africa, right? We've talked about it before. Apartheid finally fell in South Africa in 1993, 94, and but the remnants of apartheid South Africa are still active in South Africa today. And here's what I mean by that, because I mean very, very specifically something tangible. I'm not just talking about there's racism in the air, right? I'm talking about the tangible things. One of those things is geographically speaking, during apartheid, there were entire areas that were sectioned off for blacks and for coloreds, and blacks and for colors, because for those who don't know, those are two different categories. Coloreds usually demark someone who's mixed with black and white, who have certain traits. This running joke in South Africa was that our oldest son Ezra, could pass as a color just because of not just his skin tone, but the way his hair is and everything, right? But my other son Judah looks very black, right? And by South African standards. Right, so there were section off areas and neighborhoods for blacks and coloreds, and that was often far away from the city centers. So the places where the workplaces and the places where commerce happened and all those things would be far away from blacks and coloreds, because the message was you're not allowed over here, right? So now apartheid falls, but those things are still very much in place, right? And there's still places where where blacks and coloreds live, where they can't afford to move into these areas. But now they're taking, let's say, black people in this certain area have a job. They have to take multiple buses and taxis and travel for 2-3 hours just to get to their workplace. Right. And so we talked about that, how because of that, everywhere we went usually took about at least 20 minutes, right? That was a minimum, 20 minutes to get anywhere at the very least, right? And then oftentimes it was more than that. It was, this is 45 minutes away, it's an hour away. And I'm not talking about let's take a field trip. I'm talking about let's go to the store, right? Let's go to the mall. We have to go to a mall that has X because we need this. Okay, well, that's about an hour and a half away. And every time we had to do that, I thought about those words that Olga said to me maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we were in South Africa, that the architecture and the geographical locations of everything these things were designed during the apartheid era, and they're still here because what are you going to do? Just like bulldoze entire neighborhoods and start over? You can't do that. So you have to kind of work with what you have. And so there's still very much a lot of things that need to be worked through. And so that I thought about quite a bit. And then also the fact that, and Olga will speak about this too, just the fact that, there are things that we've talked about some of the internal corruption going on, right? The stuff going on in South Africa that we don't often hear about. And when we do hear about South Africa, and when I say we, I'm talking about those of us in the Israel advocacy space, or even just those of us in the general public, when we hear about the ANC, it's often in the context, or the thing that's often pushed or implied is that the ANC speaks for South Africa, for all of the people of South Africa. And so we've been trying to illustrate more and more that that's not necessarily true, right? That the statements from the ANC do not always reflect the vast majority of the country. And so we've talked about that. And one of the things that we experienced, again, this is just some of these we give you our stats, but other things we give you just experience now. And I see Olga's here, so you can go ahead and hop in here, Olga. This is actually the perfect timing. Hello, Olga. It's good to see you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Washington. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back.
It is good to see you. And yes, it is good to be back. We're looking now. People are still coming in. We have about 166 people in climbing coming in. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Olga, we were just talking about a couple of things. I was sharing about the remnants of apartheid, and what I was saying was something tangible. I wasn't just saying like, oh, there's racism in the air, but I meant like I talked about the geography of things and how certain places we had to go, a lot of times we had to travel minimum 20-25 minutes.
In South
oftentimes in South Africa, right? And then maximum, going to a specific store sometimes took an hour and 20 minutes, and it was just a store. Like it wasn't like we went to a special city. It was, no, we just got to go get, we had to get clothes for the boys. Okay, that's an hour over here. And can you speak a little bit more to that? Please go ahead.
Well, like you say, it's one of the remnants of apartheid, which is why when people, because this is the Africa-Israel Forum, when people liken Israel to apartheid South Africa, it makes, depending on the mood that I'm in, me very angry, or I just laugh at it because it's ridiculous. Based on the premise, as many people I hope know, because only of the color of our skin, Black people were separated from white people in all forms and for all reasons. And one of the ways that we were separated was not just by living in segregated areas, but ensuring that the opportunity to reach those segregated areas was made very, very difficult. And so now what we have is, even though we've got a democratic and integrated South Africa, areas that were historically white, as well as areas that were historically Black, are separated by, in South Africa, we call them highways. I think here in America, you call them freeways. And like you say, it takes a good 20 to 30 minutes, not because that there's a lot of traffic lights or that there's a lot of stop streets, but really because the distance is so far. And unfortunately, what that's meant is that many people who come from historically Black areas and who still live there, and those would be predominantly Black people, have to pay additional money for transportation in order to get from point A to point B. And that is unfortunately one of the legacies of apartheid, that we still, what are we now, more than 30 years, almost 30 years to the day. It's going to be 30 years on the 27th of April of this year. Excuse me, the 29th of April. 27th of April. I'm getting confused with my mom's birthday. The 27th of April, 1994 is when we had democracy in South Africa. So yeah.
And then, so when we're talking about that, right? It's been 30 years, which isn't a long time. That's not a long time, right? And I was just saying, like, what are you going to do? You're going to demolish neighborhoods and start over? You can't
Mhm.
just start the landscape over again, right? So, given that 30 years isn't that long when it comes to the lifespan of a country, of a democracy, I mean, especially. Um, wh- what is your assessment of where things are now? What I mean by that is, given the current ruling party, the ANC, the African National Congress, are do you feel that they've been moving at a good pace in terms of actually rectifying those things? Are they on a normal pace? Are they not moving at all? They move too slowly. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, first of all, it depends who you ask. And so asking me as a Black South African, my answer would be very different to potentially a South African of another race. And it also depends on moving forward in what areas. Moving forward in terms of reconciliation, there was a lot of movement made forward underneath the presidency of our first president, Nelson Mandela. A lot of union coming together, a lot of people,
Mm.
like racial barriers being broken down. Many people will say that the racial barriers that were broken down in the tenure of his presidency have unfortunately come up again. Some people will talk about the fact that whilst there has been political movement forward, political liberation, you've got now the Black people in government, as we can see with the African National Congress. There has been very little movement from an economic perspective, which is why you then have organizations like the Economic Freedom Front who have taken it upon themselves to say, yes, South Africa is liberated politically, but she's not yet liberated economically. And so we're going to
Mm.
then be the champions of liberation. And we believe that the liberation of South Africans, particularly Black South Africans, from an economic perspective, has to happen hand in hand with socialist as well as communist ideologies. So it really does depend, and one can break it down a lot more. Unfortunately, corruption has become very rife in South Africa. I don't know if you've touched on it already, but we were able to experience firsthand, I think, why South Africa's government, the African National Congress, has taken Israel to the ICJ, really to try and serve as a distraction for the ridiculousness of what's happening in South Africa. South Africa is a beautiful country with incredibly resilient people. And for the first time in my entire life, we had to drink out of bottled water. I mean, I remember asking my dad and saying, "Wait, I don't understand. Are we drinking out of bottled water because we are now fancy or because we now like the taste of bottled water?" I mean, I used to be so excited that in Johannesburg, you could just drink straight out the faucet, and not only could you drink it because there was nothing wrong with the water, but the water tasted lovely. And now you can't. You can't do that. Right? We know about load shedding, and now there's water shedding, and not just water shedding, but you have to drink out of bottled water. So lots of distractions, unfortunately, that have been going on because of the corruption of the African National Congress. And so, any strides that we may have made
Mm.
in the early days of democracy, in my personal opinion, unfortunately, we have gone backwards.
Wow. And something that struck me, a couple of things that struck me, and it's actually gonna segue into our next point, is because of the corruption, you have these parties like the EFF you just mentioned, the Economic Freedom Fighters, who are radical wing. They have very communist tendencies. That during the whole expropriation issue, their proposal was, well, let us have all the land, and
Yeah. Like
we'll
governance.
parcel it, right. The government, exactly, we'll be the ruling party, give us all the land, and we'll parcel it out. And people were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But the unfortunate thing is that the premise, some of the things that they're saying about the current ruling government is not a lie, right? They're not making something up. They're saying that, look at this, look at how far backwards the ANC has taken us these last couple of presidencies. They've completely unraveled any progress Nelson Mandela has. And so they're not wrong. It's just that their goal is not what it doesn't reflect. I At least from my perspective as an outsider, the broader majority of the country, what they're advocating for, right? We might all agree with their frustration and their anger of certain things, but then they say, well, in conclusion, this should happen, and that's where people get lost. Is like, that's not what we were thinking, and that's at least what it seems like to me.
I would agree with you. I don't think that the majority of South Africans agree with the fundamental premise of the economic freedom fighters, although there really is frustration. There's frustration with the pace at which particularly economic liberation has happened. There's frustration at the corruption that's happened. We as South Africans only need to look to the north of our border to see what the policies of the Economic Freedom Front would bring about in South Africa, because we had ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe that not only utilized expropriation for land without compensation as a tool, but then when it handed the farms that were very rich, I mean, Zimbabwe used to be known as a breadbasket of Africa, when it handed the farms into the hands of Black people who had no training. Right. I'm all about empowering Black people. I'm all about empowering all races, but you can't do that and say that it's empowerment when you give to people who have no skill set, right? So
Right.
that
Right.
unfortunately was what took place in Zimbabwe. That unfortunately is what the economic freedom fighters are wanting to do. Even some sectors of the African National Congress that must all just go to the Black people, but then there's no training, and so you're going to give it to us. And we're not going to be able to do anything. When I say us, people of my skin color, but who aren't particularly trained in that area. And then South Africa is just going to suffer. It's only in recent years that Zimbabwe has been able to come and improve from the devastation economically that it's been through over the last few decades.
Mm, mm. Absolutely. And it's something you said too that I heard a couple of times in South Africa, which is that not just in South Africa, but a general principle when it comes to ridding any country, any government of corruption or whatever is going on. It usually takes about 2 terms of whatever president comes in that actually, and it has to be 2 terms of very focused,
Yeah.
like like we say in the States, draining the swamp kind of thing, right? A very focused, like, we are going to rid from top down, from the higher levels of government all the way down to the police officers on the street. All corruption is going to be gone. That it takes 2 whole terms, which means in a democracy like South Africa, that would mean an entire life or entire span of a presidency, if that president gets elected the second term, just to clean the slate, just to wipe the slate clean. Which, to me actually discouraged me a little bit, because I was like, man, that seems like a big feat. Because let's say a president started off the first term doing really well, and then presidents are known to kind of get more lazy in the second term. I don't have to run for re-election. This is my last term anyway. I can kind of do what I want to do. And so it seems like, and I'll get your thoughts on this too, that, well, what I'm not even saying it seems like, what is it going to take for South Africa to have a leader that is committed, and not just a leader, but a cabinet, a party, right? Like, 'cause it can't just be one person, but a group of people who are so committed to this that they see themselves as just a vessel for changing the country. It's not about their ego,
Yeah.
nothing. What is that going to take?
Well, in my opinion, it's going to take an ideological mind shift, not only, as you say, from whoever's going to occupy the position of the presidency, or even who's going to occupy the position of cabinet ministers or any other senior officials in that administration, but it really is a mindset of the people, which will then ensure that after that particular individual's presidency,
Mm,
that there will be a continued mindset of, we are moving forward. We're not going to be looking around and blaming everybody, because once you start to blame people, then you don't take accountability or agency or even ownership for where you need to go. That's then how corruption will even sink in further, because you're just thinking about me versus thinking about the future, thinking about empowering not only your people and your generation, but also generations to come. And without harping on Israel per se, I do think that that's one of the incredible lessons that we can learn from the Jewish people in terms of how they, after seasons and seasons from the beginning of their history, will go through different challenges and will go through different persecutions. And even in the rebirth of the state of Israel, a place that was just a total swamp and malaria and, I mean, just desert, but how they were able to not just look around and blame and point the finger to everybody, but then take accountability for who they are as a people and say, we want to move our people forward. And that is a difference, I think, also that we're seeing in South Africa with a leadership that is so ingrained and focusing on the Palestinian issue and who the Palestinian people are, quote unquote, not with regards to what they can be, but the woe is us and look at us and everybody is to blame except us and I accept our leadership. It's like, no, guys, that's why you're always going to stay where you are with regards to being not only corrupt, but just not moving forward as a society. So the ideological shift with regards to moving forward, becoming the best that one can be, learning from whomever one can, opportunities that are available is a mindset that we need to, as not only Africans, but as Black South Africans more specifically, embrace. And if we are able to do so, I mean, you've been there. Like, South Africa is beautiful. Like, love my country, love America as well. She's my country too now, but love South Africa, and her people are tenacious, and they just want to, for the most part, move forward and really indulge, if I can use that word, in the opportunity of everybody being prosperous. That's a citizen as well as a visitor of that country.
Absolutely. And I just want to, on that thought, I want to pause just for a moment and let everyone know, as you're watching this now, if you're enjoying this so far, again, this is IBSI's, this is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel's weekly forum on Africa, Israel, and Black America. If you're watching this and you've been enjoying our content, we want you to become a legacy builder. A legacy builder is someone who gives a monthly amount, whatever you can give, and you can always increase it as we go. IBSI.org/donate. We've had people who have given as little as $15 a month who've now increased their giving to around $50 a month. We have people who used to just give, I think like $100 a year, who now are able to do more than that. You start with what you can, but every one of those monthly giving, every one of the legacy builders that we get, they count so greatly. We very much appreciate it, and it really is the lifeblood of what we do. We have a couple of bigger donors who help us with our large events and other things like that. But really, it's the monthly consistent donors of the everyday people that really help us to continue going. So IBSI.org/donate, become a legacy builder. And there are other ways you can give as well, which we'll talk about throughout the night. But that's a huge way. So for those watching now, stop what you're doing. Go to it. It takes just a few seconds. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to pause this video. Just open up a new tab, keep listening, and become a legacy builder. All right. Okay. Now, still in the same vein as South Africa, I want to show a video because a few weeks ago, we showed a video of Reverend Kenneth Mway, your father, my father-in-law, but the president of the African Christian Democratic Party in Parliament, calling out the ANC for taking Israel to the ICJ. And we showed that video. It went viral. He said that Genesis 12:3 says, I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. He said, ANC, you have invited a curse upon yourself, and you are going to get it. He was cut off at that point, and we talked to him. Remember, he said, I had a few more things I wanted to say, but my time ran out. And so people were sharing that, and we appreciated that. But we want to also continue to highlight that he is not a lone voice. He might be a minority voice in Parliament, kind of, but he's not a lone voice in South Africa. Like, what the things that he said, that echoes more of the calls of the people in South Africa. As a matter of fact, and Olga, you pointed this out, after the ANC took Israel to the International Court of Justice, there was a whole event of, I mean, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of South Africans who came together just to repent for the ANC doing that. Say, God, we're sorry. Please see us, right? See our hearts. So we want to continue to show people that this is what we see coming from the ANC. Unfortunately, has a lot to do with money. The ANC, unfortunately, being in bed with Hamas. the ANC, unfortunately, getting the foreign dollars to say and do things when they want to say and do them. And what we saw from Rev is more reflective of the country. And so we want to show you another clip of another party leader. The Patriotic Alliance is the name of the party. And the president of that party's name is Gayton McKenzie. He is on a panel with someone else from another party called the Democratic Alliance, who claim to be friends of Israel. But in this particular clip, the representative of the Democratic Alliance was accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, right? And so this clip is... Sorry, go ahead, Olga, before I go ahead and set it up for us.
No. I was just going to add to the fact that it's not just a representative of the Democratic Alliance, it's the president of the Democratic Alliance, like the leader of the Democratic Alliance. And why is that important? It's important because if South Africa is going to turn around with regards to leadership and its approach to Israel. And after the clip, let's talk a little bit for those that may not have been following us for a long time as to why is it so important to spotlight the relationship between Israel and South Africa and South Africans and Israel and the Jewish people, because that's very important. It takes integrity. It takes integrity. It takes courage, right? The Democratic Alliance, without going into too much of the history there, has for the longest of time said that it supports Israel, has said that it supports the Jewish people. But if when you put under fire and you put under pressure, you're going to flip-flop in terms of your stance in relation to truth, then we need to start paying attention to who you really are. Are you really a friend? Because if you're a friend even through the tough times.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and play that clip, please, if you have it.
Gayton McKenzie, do you want to see a free and sovereign Palestine?
Right. I think they lie when they say white men can't dance. John has been dancing around the question here. He's not been answering the question. Let me show you how you answer the question. No, let me answer the question. Number one, there's no genocide happening there. Number two, let me answer you.
When children are starving, that's
no. Let me answer you. Don't tell me how I should answer you. Number two, let me tell you something. If I'm the president of this country, and let's say Lesotho comes here and they take hostages and they take children, and I will bomb Lesotho, and if they want peace, they must return the children. Nothing tells you about peace. And if I become president, I will stop that case of the ICJ, simply because the honorable minister pursues Israel. Yesterday, 22 people are shot here in Misha's Plain, more than the IC, more than in Ramallah, in Palestine. They are wearing scarves of Palestine, while our people die here more than Palestine. Today they say we must be enemy. Jewish people are the enemy. I grew up poor. It was a Jewish woman in Operation Hunger that was giving us food. It was the Jewish people that went to Mandela to jail. So.
Yeah.
Can I do a little bit of an intro as well? Because we only played the clip of Gayton speaking. So right at the beginning, he was talking about how they say that white people can't dance, and it's because the speaker just before you alluded to him, Joshua, was the leader of the Democratic Alliance, and he was asked, the leader of the Democratic Alliance was asked, if you were to become president, what will you do if, in relation to this court case that South Africa has brought against Israel and the ICJ? And his wishy-washy response was, well, there's a court case before the court, and we're going to see how the court deals with it and let them make a determination factor and blah, 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 blah. Maybe there's a genocide, maybe not. Let's just leave it to the courts. And then that's when Gayton came out and was like, no, right? Let's not skirt around the issue. Let's not dance around the issue. Let's have courage. Let's be able to speak the truth. Let's speak truth to power. And then that's what he said. It's very interesting also that he highlights the fact that despite the very real deaths that are happening in South Africa on a daily basis, again, South Africa is a beautiful country and she's got her problems. Unfortunately, one of the problems that she has is a very high crime rate. Despite that, You don't see African National Congress leaders in the streets marching and saying, we want to save our people. Never mind the fact that they are the cause of why we've got such a high crime rate, because there's lawlessness in South Africa. They haven't been able to take authority and really deal with the issue there. You don't see them doing that. But for some reason, they care about life, and life that's supposedly being under attack in a genocide happening many thousands of kilometers away. Never mind the fact that there's a real genocide in several places happening on the African continent, and they've said nothing about it. It's absolute hypocrisy. It's a deflection of the responsibilities. And like you said a few moments ago, they really are just being paid to be a mouthpiece for Hamas.
And to me, and you're absolutely right, I think it goes even deeper than hypocrisy, because we've talked about this before. The same radical Islamic Jihad that is still warring with Israel, still has the hostages, raped a bunch of women, slaughtered 1,500 and kidnapped 1,500 Israelis and foreign nationals. They're the same ideology, the same type of groups that are in Sudan, that are enslaving Sudanese, that are Boko Haram and the Fulani herdsmen in Nigeria, Al-Shabaab in Kenya, same ideology. So not only are you now taking up the cause of the enemy side, but you're also, like Gate and McKenzie said, completely silent on what's happening in our country, but also silent on the side that you've taken up on their counterparts doing the same thing to Africans all over the continent. So it's like, not only are you a hypocrite, but you are actually an anathema to your own people. You're allowing your people to be slaughtered because whatever your reasons are. And then, and like you said, the president of the DA, and I encourage everyone to watch the full clip, dancing around that question just shows to me, like a politician here in the States, that you won't do what needs to be done when crap hits the fan. You won't say what needs to be said. You'll say what you feel like it's most politically advantageous for you. And so through my eyes, I say, you guys, like, even if you don't like someone's views, it's always a good sign if you know what their views are, you know where they stand. Yes. I think this. Okay, well, I think that's terrible. I disagree with that. But you know what? You said it. And I appreciate that, because now I get it. And I know that you probably are all in for what you believe, right? Maybe your heart's in the right place and we just disagree. But for someone who says we stand with Israel, and then they go, well, maybe it's genocide, maybe it's not, just okay, you don't really stand with Israel. You stand with Israel because you know that most South Africans will appreciate that. That's not standing with Israel. That means that if the DA was in the States, the DA would be saying a completely different thing. If the DA was in another country, I mean, just that's so anyway. So that to me is a bad sign. But again, just highlighting Gate and McKenzie, him and Rev, and we highlighted Chief Justice Mway before. They are not just lonely voices in the wilderness of South Africa. They represent millions of South Africans. Yeah, millions across the country. And so we have to also understand that they are going through their own internal struggles, and they're at a tipping point. There really is a lot going on, and I think more and more is being said internally as well. And we'll see what the elections bring about in May. So
before you segue,
go ahead, Olga.
If I can just comment one thing there, I think this whole question in relation to do you stand with Israel, do you not stand with Israel, particularly after October 7, doesn't just bring to the fore in relation to where are you on the Israel question, but also where are you in terms of truth and morality and actual justice and the ability to think and consider and apply nuance and not just follow the crowd for the sake of following the crowd. We definitely, in my opinion, have been able to assess where are people on just issues of life, and who are people that you would want in your corner when the going gets tough, people that are going to be courageous, that are prepared to lose friends because they believe in principle, because they're convicted about something, who aren't lazy as it comes to finding out what is truth and what is fact. I mean, it's just, it's been a very, very telling time. And I'm grateful for organizations such as the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel that continues to be consistent in sharing the truth, in providing a light with regards to what is really going on. Where should people be in relation to issues, like I've already said, of true justice and courage and, principles that God willing, soon after the hostages are released and the war comes to an end, are still going to come around, right? Because there's nothing new under the sun. And when the next challenge hits, whether it's in the Middle East or somewhere else, these are going to be people that will be like, we saw you in that hour of need, and we can trust you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to say Pastor Matrilla Hall always tunes in. She says hi. So I'll just give her a quick shout out because she is one of our IBSI pastors. So shout out to you, Pastor Matrilla Hall, down there in Georgia, not Atlanta, though. I think just outside of Atlanta. But we appreciate you, ma'am, and all the work that you do, even outside of what you do as an IBSI pastor. Great work in the community. If you guys are ever in that area, go visit their church. Look her up, Pastor Matrilla B. Hall. Shout out to you, ma'am. You guys, I want to pivot just for a moment and talk about this here, and then we're going to actually bring in our founder and CEO to share a few words with us. And he's been talking about it, but a few weeks ago, right as the hashtag, as you guys have been seeing, Christ is King, has been like just kind of spreading all over the place, right? And if you see like Olga shaking her head, it's not because she doesn't believe that. We're Christians. We say amen to that. The problem is, though, and our CEO coined it perfectly. We were having a meeting about it, and he said, I think he tweeted it too. He said, Christ is King is the right-wing version of Black Lives Matter now. That's what's going on. And he tweeted that, I think, and posted about it. And some people are like, oh, you're being on that. And, you have like conservatives who are on the other side of the coin of the BLM people who are just going after them. Oh, if you have a problem with Christ is King, then maybe that means that you have a problem with Christ. So he's like, I'm a Christian pastor, and I'm saying this. I don't have a problem with Jesus. He preaches Jesus, right? But he's like, that's not what you guys are doing, though. And so again, at IBSI, we as much as we possibly can, we separate what's going on, the real from the fake. Yes, we're Christians and we agree with the sentiment on its face. The problem is the people who are spreading it. You have different categories, right? But the main people are the people like Candace Owens, people like Charlie Kirk, and then even the clip that we're about to show you now, people who aren't even Christian, who don't even believe in God, let alone Jesus, right? The people who are sharing it are doing it with the nefarious purpose that actually is making a mockery of God.
Joshua.
Yes.
Sorry to interject there. Do you want to perhaps set the stage a little bit? Perhaps there's somebody that's listening that actually doesn't know why Christ is King is trending and why it's trending in a negative way.
Sure. Yeah. So yes. So yes, let me give a little bit of context. I apologize. So and you can help me with this, Olga, because when I started seeing this trending, we were in South Africa, but we did see some stuff happen between Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, right? Candace Owens and the Daily Wire. She left the Daily Wire, tweeted, "Oh, I'm free, everyone free at last, free at last." And there was already stuff going on right before she left. Obviously, the weeks leading up to it, she was just spreading all kinds of anti-Israel propaganda. She said, I want to see both sides of the argument. So then she had Norman Finkelstein, one of like the top, professor anti-Israel people. And then she brought on this other guy, this other comedian person on the pro-Israel side. And he also did a great job, but you could see the bias because how are you going to bring someone up here from that? And then, so she just kept doing that. Israel's bombing hospitals. She was just all kinds of lies, right? So she leaves the Daily Wire, and there's this sentiment that keeps going around that she left because she's a Christian and Ben's a Jew, and he's been oppressing her because she's a Christian, and Christians are the most oppressed group in the world, and so therefore Christ is King, right? It was almost like this is like, we're saying this now at you, Ben Shapiro, and whoever else, whether they're Jewish or they're not, Christ is King. And so that kind of soared out of that, right? Now, am I missing something about that, Olga?
No, you're right. Just it came to the fore, if I'm not mistaken, November last year, but towards the end of last year when there was a public spat with her and Ben on Twitter, and talking about serving God and mammon and da-da-da-da. And she then had this whole thing about Christ as King. And so that was like one of the digs at him, and at him being an Orthodox Jew. And so that's when the phrase was said, and then it died down a little bit. And then to your point now, it's come to the fore following her departure from the Daily Wire.
And I have to say this too. because we said it before, and we've even written about it, that Candace would often, and this isn't just about her, because she didn't start this movement. She's just one of the big names right now that's a part of it. One pattern that we kept seeing with Candace is that, and yes, ma'am, Pastor Machola said, I see Christ King trend as a mockery to the highest degree. And again, you guys, this is another pastor. Okay, this is another pastor saying that this is a mockery. We don't disagree. I feel like I'm talking about BLM from a few years ago. Yes, we're not saying that Black lives don't matter. We're saying that you guys are anyway. So let me just focus on this for a second. So whenever Candace will receive pushback for what she was saying about Israel, things that she was saying that was problematic, like legitimate, not just attacks. I'm talking about people saying that's not true, Candace, because X, Y, Z. If you really did your research, you would find this. If you actually had people on your show who were in Israel, they can tell you X, Y, Z, but you're not doing that. And then she would retreat to, as a Christian, I feel this, and as a Christian, I feel that. And the people are trying to suppress my, and as a mother, and as a Christian mother. And I was like, I've never heard you talk about God once. And there's this joke, she was on the Breakfast Club, and they said, God is good. And she didn't know what to say after that. And for those of you who are Christians, you know what you're supposed to say after that. You're supposed to say all the time. And then all the time, we say God is good. She didn't know what to say. Now, that was a joke. Wait, maybe she didn't know. Okay, but then we were like, okay, but that's to us, that was just more indicative of the fact that she's using God as a blanket to hide behind her dishonesty, her Jew hatred, whether it's intended or not. And so the whole Christ is King thing was even more so, because I remember when she was tweeting about this, Ben responded and said, Candace, if you feel that working for the Daily Wire is a threat to your Christianity, then you're more than welcome to leave. He was like, no, now we're not siding with Ben, but he was saying, no one's keeping you here, Candace. Of course, when she left, I'm free, as if she was held there against her will. And now we see this hashtag emerging even more so. Now, I want to share with you, because it's not just us talking. There's a clip. There's a Muslim guy. He's a Muslim influencer by the name of Sneeko. That's what he goes by on. I don't know if that's his real name or he goes by that on social media. But check this out, what he says about the hashtag. Again, he's a Muslim. Okay, guys? Now check this out.
And before this came out, he too tweeted Christ is King. So a whole bunch of people who, to your point, aren't even Christians, or are Christians and don't live a lifestyle that shows that they're in agreement with the fact that Christ is King. Everybody's tweeting this, and then some of the pushback that we also got was like, why aren't you allowing people to proclaim the fact that Christ is King? And then this thing came out. So I just wanted to add that.
No, go ahead. Yep. So let's show the clip.
Like Christ is King, which you sent me a message about. I think you sent me a message correcting that. Yeah. I see that as like something provocative that can draw attention, that gets people talking. And then hopefully those people that are speaking about it, they get to funnel in, they get to see what we're really speaking about. Do I believe Christ is the King of all kings? Absolutely not. But I like the semantics of that word, and especially how that gets a lot of engagement. And also, it's a political slogan, kind of like Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Right? Obviously, Black Lives Matter, but saying that gets the right people upset and the right people happy, and it's a sign of allegiance. The same reason why I say something like that. Is it perfect to Islam? No, but I think everybody, the way I see it is, I think everybody has their method in this war against Shaitan.
Ooh.
Goodness gracious. So he doesn't. So if you're thinking, well, great, it's an evangelism tool, people are using it. No, he's like, I don't believe it. I think it's just a political message, like Black Lives Matter. He himself. Now, again, our CEO tweeted this a couple weeks ago. It's just Black Lives Matter for the conservatives. This Muslim man is saying, he's talking to an imam, that I see Christ as King like Black Lives Matter was, right? It's just kind of like a political statement to kind of rally people around. He said, do I believe? I don't believe that Christ is King. I just use it. I want to share this with you. This is for the Christians who specifically who are watching, but everyone can read from this. But I'm going to read something for you. It's in the New Testament again. But it speaks to what's happening right now. And then for you're Christian, especially, I want you to listen to this. It's in 2 Timothy chapter 3. Okay, I'm just gonna read the first few verses. It talks about the end of day, the last days. Okay, it says, but understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people. Okay? Whenever I see someone using that hashtag, especially those who we've seen they've had a track record of Jew hatred, anti-Israel, Israel hatred, all those things, I think of that specific verse, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Literally, Sneeko it's an exemplification of that. He exemplifies that. He doesn't even believe that Jesus is king. He doesn't even believe. He's a Muslim. He represents, and I'm not trying to come after religion, but he represents a religion that has enslaved many parts of Africa, right? That has murdered Christians across it. Most of the Christian persecution going on globally is because of Islam. So he represents a religion that is currently doing that. And he is out here making a mockery of God, saying Christ is king. That's literally having the appearance of godliness and denying his power. He says, I like to use that phrase, but I don't believe that Jesus is actually king. That's literally what that is. And for those of you, and like Olga said, and if you are Christian and not living the lifestyle that actually reflects that you believe that Christ is king, you are doing the same exact thing. So now we're talking spiritually just for a moment. There's a political part of it where people are using it to attack Jews. And there's a spiritual part of it is you are playing with God. And the scriptures say, where does it say? Is it in Samuel? Be not deceived, God will not be mocked.
That's in Galatians.
Galatians. Be not deceived, God will not be mocked.
Yeah.
So like Reverend Mway said to the ANC about them inviting a curse upon themselves, you guys are playing with fire. You do not want to be caught. Go ahead, Olga.
It's big fire. And also, if you listen to the ending of what Sneeko said, I think you said that's his name. He talks about in this fight against Satan, like he's likening the Jews in Israel to Satan. And so using this phrase, Christ as king, as a political tool, as an anti-Semitic tool, with regards to getting the right people upset and the right people on the side and showing allegiance. I mean, to your point, playing with fire, this is demonic. And again, the one thing that I really, really appreciate about the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel and the work that we do and the leadership of our CEO is the ability to apply nuance and just to think for a slight second to be like, oh, okay, this is a saying that we as Christians would ordinarily say, but there's something that's sinister here. We're not just going to immediately jump on the bandwagon. So there's a level of education and a level of patience to be able to say, okay, what's really, really going on here? The ability to apply one's mind critically and consider the issues at stake. And so to your point, when our CEO tweeted that a couple of weeks ago in relation to, this is Black Lives Matter. Well, look, here we are, right? We've the Institute for Black Solidarity has been proven to be correct. And people who may have said that in ignorance and jumped on the bandwagon saying, woohoo, here we go, proclaiming the lordship of Jesus Christ. Like if you were doing that, but not realizing that it was being used as a tool. And here's an opportunity to be able to make rights and say, you know what, I was wrong in how I used it because I didn't have an understanding. If I am going to use it, I'm going to state it for exactly what it is. And if I may challenge everybody out there, especially the young people out there who unfortunately are many that are falling prey to this. So young people on the conservative side, let your light so shine before men. Let your lifestyle be one that showcases the fact that Christ is indeed king, that you are subjected to the lordship of Jesus Christ every day of your life and what you say and what you do and how you live, so that those that want to make a mockery of Christianity and of this particular phrase against the Jewish people and against God himself are unable to be successful in that endeavor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so now our CEO, let's go ahead and bring our CEO in as we're coming to the last few minutes of our program. Ladies and gentlemen, our founder, CEO, Pastor Dumisani Washington. And it's good to see you, sir. Go ahead and he's going to share some things with us. I'm not sure if you want to tag on to what was said or if you had something else you wanted to share. So we're good.
No, not so much tag on. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, not so much tag on. Just simply, yeah. I mean that this is it's unfortunate that we're having these discussions around Christ is King. The whole, and again, that was just the analogy that came immediately in mind was Black Lives Matter, like you said already, right? And this is exactly what's happening. The conversations that are being had and everything. I'll just say this last thing, that for believers, for Christians, and I said this a little while earlier today, if it bothers you to be made aware of how it's being used, meaning if you learning that there are people who either are not Christians, who are mocking Christians, who hate Jews, are using that phrase, if that bothers you to know that, then you need to check you. It's different than somebody telling you what you can and cannot say. You know, just saying this is being used for this. I've watched that kind of really touchy-feely go, you know, grab a blanket and, you know, call your mom type of thing. I said a couple of weeks ago, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this country that the healthy dose of man up wouldn't just fix, right? Just being aware. If you are a Christian and you being aware of the controversy hurts your feelings, then you need to go in your prayer closet. And you seriously, this is just, we are so good. You just need to be aware. What you say is what you say, and what your declaration is your declaration. Just be aware. So I'll say that last thing. And I know you've done this before, but again, those who are listening, again, thank you all so much for joining us as well. Always, Legacy Builder. You can go to ibsi.org, click on donate, and you can become a legacy builder, which is a monthly giver. Again, we so appreciate. We had our staff meeting earlier today. And learned that we cleared our first quarter budget goals, if you will. Now we are in the second quarter, and we're already a little behind where that's concerned. So over these next few months, we have some benchmarks that we have to meet. So again, we appreciate you all so much. Again, we cannot do what we do without your support anyway. So we so appreciate it. Over these next couple of months, myself, Joshua, Olga, members of our senior staff will be in different cities over these next couple of months, and be in New York. One or all of us be in New York. So headed out to the West Coast pretty soon. Again, we did have a date for an academic type of conference, but that conference has been postponed in large part because they've expanded the conference, and so now they need a bigger venue. I mean, that's not because us. I'm just saying we're part of it, but it has nothing to do with us. But they're getting a bigger venue, and so we're getting information on that. So all of those things that we're doing, some of them are academic, some of them are religious, some of them are more in terms of the community. So we'll be letting you know about those specific things. I think Joshua and Olga, tell us about that one, the Shiraka we're doing. No, I'm sorry, not with Shiraka. Shout out to Shiraka. We love you all. But that's not what this one is. That's something else. But I think we're having an event coming up pretty soon in Upper East Side. Yeah. No, Upper East Side, Manhattan. What's happening? I know we have all the details, but Joshua, what's that about again?
Yeah, so that's April 10th. Yeah, we'll be Upper East Side, Manhattan, and that'll be kind of more of an intimate setup. We're all gonna be there. We're gonna be speaking about some of the stuff now, but going more in depth and actually just being able to interface in person with you, answering questions and all those things. And so if you go, the event is up now. If you go to ibsi.org/dates, you can register. You'll get the address and the exact address and everything after you register. But that's April 10th, and that's going to be at 6 p.m. So it's an evening event. We'd love to see you. It's going to be lots of fun. It's going to be really cool, actually.
We're looking forward to that there in April. I'll be there again. I believe Joshua and Olga, you guys are both going, right? We're all going to that.
Yes, sir.
In New York. I don't think that our COO started to say go, but everybody doesn't know her by that. She may or may not be there, but her third grandson is up there in Brooklyn, so she might come anyway. So he'll hang out and everything. So shout out to our family there as well. And yes, so we appreciate you all's support. One of the ways that you support us, everyone, is through our Substack, Africa Israel Weekly. And so we have articles that are there. I just contributed one this morning, and I don't remember the title of it. I know what it's about. But the title is making themselves the story or something like that. And I don't know if we have it on there, Miss Producer. If not, it's okay. We have the cover there. I want to just say something about it real quickly. If it is there, I see the link, but I don't see the graphic, but that's okay. It is making themselves the story. It's basically the subtitle is how the MSM, how the mainstream media marginalizes Black pro-Israel voices. Now, I didn't go way beyond pro-Israel. or just that as a political issue. But I'll just say this really briefly about it. First of all, I would like you to go and check that out. Not all the content is premium. Some of it is. This is not. This is a free article, whether you've subscribed or not, or you're a paid subscriber or not. But if you do become a paid subscriber, again, that helps Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel do the work that it does. And I had mentioned this before. Some of you had seen my recent interview with Jonathan Tobin on JNS. And many of you have reached out and said how informative it was for you. And I appreciate that. I really do. And go ahead and share that and everything. We haven't done any clips of it. JNS has been putting up some clips and we've been sharing those as well. And one of the things, that clip hasn't come out, but one of the things I shared with Jonathan Tobin was the fact that we're going to be writing this article. And what I mean by that is simply this. I see Pastor Hall, shout out to you, ma'am, down there in the Atlanta area. One of the comments that she made is she's been having conversations with bishops and pastors who say that they don't stand with Israel. She's been having those difficult conversations. And again, this is indicative of our community. We have these conversations in real time in our churches, in our barbershops, in our beauty salons, we have the conversations off the grid, if you will. And there are different opinions that are there and everything. What has happened media-wise, we have many meetings coming up. Josh and Olga, you know this, particularly after October the 7th, IBSI has been reached out to by multiple entities wanting to have dialogue around Black and Jewish, Africa, Israel, that type of thing, right? And so one of the things that we've told people, which is why I wrote this article, is that often what you're seeing portrayed in the media is not real. Just like you two were talking about South Africa, right? And in the article, I give you 3 different examples of different mainstream media outlets that reached out to interview. It's funny, Olga, the gentleman, who was the gentleman speaking, the South African gentleman? I saw Black and Jewish Unity had it up there. What was his name? Who was talking to me?
Oh, Gayton McKenzie. Yeah.
Gayton McKenzie. That who it was?
Yes, sir.
Was he one of the political leaders? I didn't recognize him.
He's the leader of the Patriotic Alliance.
Okay. Yeah. I need to find out some more and I'll share that. IBSI will share that video as well. The first thing that he said, if you all notice, the moderator asked a question about what he would do in terms of Israel and everything. Gates McKenzie is his name. Mr. McKenzie starts to answer, and the moderator cuts him off. What do you think about public? Look, let me answer the question. You asked me. Thank you. Right?
And let me answer the way that I'm going to answer it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, so wait. So you don't want me to answer the question. If you want a sock puppet, bruh, take it out your sock, put it in mind for everybody, right? You didn't want me to answer. As he said, first, it's not a genocide. What do you mean? The children are starving. Like going, that's not your job, right? So the media contacted us, IBSI, blah, 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 this. And they start correcting us. Now, I was calm. I'm not like I am now. I got to get all. I know when to get animated and I know when to bring it in. So they're like going, da, 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 da. And we would give information. They didn't agree with the information. And I said this, I didn't say it like this in the article, but let me say this, take this opportunity. I said a little bit last time. Let me say this again to the members of the media. I'll say it again. We will treat you with respect. If you want to schedule a meeting, no problem, right? We don't care. Why don't you go on the left wing? I don't care if it's left wing, right wing. My story is not going to change. I'm not going to stop telling the truth based on I'm on CNN, MSNBC, TBN, whatever it is. If it's a Christian broadcast, whatever like that, I'm going to say what I need to say. So if you don't want these Black voices to speak truth or to say what we think, don't call us. Don't bother us. Don't waste our time, right? Yes, you want boilerplate? Go to New York Times, right? You want to tell me what the progressive pastor said? Fine, I can read. I graduated from high school and from college, right? But if you want to know what we are saying, ask us and then be quiet. What did he say on? What was that? I love that on Will Smith on Hitch. He's telling the guy how to communicate with girls. Said, listen, respond. He said, don't talk. Don't look down at her cleavage. Don't look at her. When she talks, listen to her and respond to what she says. To the media members, listen to us and then respond that. Write that down. Don't tell us we don't know what we're talking about. You want to write a hit piece? It's a free country. Write a hit piece, right? But stop wasting our time contacting us to get our views. We give you our views and you start to school us. I am not your child. My parents' names were David and Lillian Washington. They have gone home to be with the Lord. You don't tell me what to do. You don't tell IBSI what to do. And no, I'm not going to put Christ as king on that because that would be blasphemous. See how that works, Candace? You don't use Christ as king when you feel like it. You be upset, but leave the Lord out of it. Yes. Anyway, You want to know what we want to say? Ask us. Olga, brilliant, independent mind. Joshua, brilliant, independent mind. Those are my children, and I don't tell them what to say. You will not call IBSI and then tell us what to say. You want to know what we have to say, we will say it to you. We will treat you with respect. You start dictating to us, we'll end the phone call, and we will not take yours anymore. Cool? And for those who say, well, you won't be in their press spot. You know what? We don't need to be in your media. You know what? The mainstream media is failing as we speak. I just read somewhere about this. I'm not even name the names just because in case this laying off these people. And they're saying, no, you have to, we need you to help us. We need you to help you what? Learn the code. But you know what? Put your big boy pants on, like everybody else, right? That's right. You're about to find out how much eggs cost. How much gas costs while you sitting there propaganda? You might want to report something real. And then, folks, anyway, so all I'm saying is, I'm just going ahead and being real about it. If you want to know what IBSI has to say, ask us, and we will be more than happy to share it with you with respect and everything. But if you want us to say what you think Black people should say, this is not the Jim Crow South. This is not apartheid South Africa. Go call somebody else. We don't shuck. We don't jive. We don't buck. We don't dance. Only time we dance when the Holy Spirit gonna move. Right? Other than that, you need to call somebody else. And that's part of the problem. Let me say something further. Even within the pro-Israel community, love you guys, appreciate you guys, but you will not dictate our mess. Oh, I just feel it, right? We want you to comment on this. You know what? We can speak around the parameters, all those other types of things. But if something that we see makes you uncomfortable, fine. Then don't. That's cool. Cool. That's cool. But don't tell us what we don't say it like that. You know what? Can I be really real? After the hot mess after October 7th, and you keep trying to dictate how people should do X, Y, and Z, I don't see anything that you need to be crowing about how great it's. Do you see what's going on in the streets of LA? Do you see what's going on in New York? Do you see what's going on college campuses? When the people who are already not really doing, trying to choose my words carefully right now, you might want to have conversation and dialogue, listen to what somebody else is saying, just like we listen. We will listen, we will respond. So the article there, without all the, the fired up there right now, I want you to check that out, IBSI. .substack.com, or you can go to ibsi.org, click on Africa Israel Weekly, check that out. There's another one that'll probably be coming out this week later on, you all, which is about the whole good times kerfuffle, right? Which we got to deal with that as well. I'm not going to get into it right now, but just you'll see we posted a couple things on there. There's a remake of Good Times by Netflix. Pastor Hall, I had to pray. Whoo, boy. It's like, wow. And so IBSI will deal with it, because we deal with these issues as well. We're going to deal with what Good Times was, a God-fearing, nuclear, intact Black family. It was a powerful representation after Black folks ain't seen good representations of themselves for decades. That series, that sitcom was amazing. And now Netflix. Whoo! So anyway, we'll get into that some other time. So Josh and Olga, I think I'm done yelling out everything. Is anything else?
Well, that is, so we got lots to jump into next week, especially in these live events on April 10th. And then in May, we had to postpone the Miami event. And so that'll be up on the dates thing soon. Our CEO will be traveling quite a bit. Olga will also be traveling. So we'll be separate and together in different places. You definitely want to come out and see us and talk to us. Ladies and gentlemen, there's that, and there was one other thing I was going to say, but if I can't remember now, then I'll just say, please make sure you subscribe to our Substack, especially we have those things coming out. More podcast episodes are also coming, so we'll be having that soon. Become a paid subscriber on our Substack page. If you are a free subscriber, switch over to paid. You'll get the premium content, and of course, again, you'll be continuing to help us do what we need to do. And you all, that's it for this week. It is 9:05 Eastern time. Thank you for tuning in. Share this with everyone. You guys, we'll see you next week at 8 p.m. Eastern next Monday, same time, same place. And we look forward to it, you all. You guys have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.